Okay, this is number 4, Web 2.North Project Intelligence. If we did 2.North, what we actually mean is that in the interface we are communicating with a team that is working on the same project. We are using social media like blogs in this case. And what you see is that the blog is in the center of the interface. There is a primary text and obviously there are responses. If you only allow your project team to have access to that blog, it becomes a very vital and important means of communication. What you often see in projects is that there is an enormous amount of emails going left and round, and all sort of people copy each other in. Sometimes you are left out, sometimes you're not aware of what the latest status is, etc. In a blog, when you position that into a project management, in that project, for example, the project leader, the project manager can start the discussion by saying, this is our plan of action, this is the vision that I have an intention to use this sort of methodology. And then he asks the team to respond in their own time to that within the coming day or two. And then you see a number of responses, and because everybody sees each other's responses, and they can actually include hyperlinks, and in that way they can sort of divert the discussion, include certain documents or certain websites, or it becomes a very rich dialogue, and the dialogue becomes vital in the development of that particular thinking around the project. So the blog is important. Now that interface around the blog you can then make richer by, on the left-hand side, for example, the intelligence and information from external sources to make a short list of most vital sources, publications, websites, what have you, that you find relevant for that discussion. On the other hand, on the right-hand side, you see, for example, a listing of internal sources, internal documents from the archive or business intelligence, which you also want to include in the interface because both sides are relevant for the discussion that you keep in the blog, but also you can use these sites to refer to. You cannot, or it's not so efficient to refer to documents which are not stated on either side. So on one side, intelligence of external sources. On the other side, intelligence of internal sources. Then at the bottom you see, on the external side, there is also the external knowledge map. Often that is the map with the stakeholders, as we discussed earlier. On the right-hand side, it's the knowledge map as we did a lot of work on the first part of the course of the Idea Factory. It is that knowledge map that can give access there. Now, that is concerning a blog. But you can also decide not to utilize the blog, but to say, well, the moment the discussion is finished and I really want to write that strategy statement about a project, or I'm going to write a plan of action, then I want people to edit it, to give them input by allowing them to edit text. That is a real wiki environment. So that's normally the second stage. That coupled to use an interface like that into a project, there are actually 3 moments when it's important: when you start up, during the course of the project, and then you close the project, when you finalize it and you want to capture knowledge management processes, lessons learned, etc. We will come to that later. Now let's go back to that interface once more, and you see there are 4 main areas of importance. And if we then look at them in greater detail, then we look at the external intelligence, the internal intelligence, the stakeholder map, and the internal knowledge map. The external intelligence are actually the 7 steps that we discussed earlier, where you say this goes from listed to cluster to prioritize to abstracted to analyze to conclude and to recommend based on external sources of information. Okay, we discussed that. If you look at the internal sources of intelligence, and we will talk about that on length in another lecture, it is important to realize they come from the inside, and to shift through all that intelligence that is available and say, well, this is the material, the way we find it important. If we present and visualize it this way, now you can really use it. It will cost you from no time at all, because it is available, up to a day, day and a half, to really work your way around all that internal data and intelligence that is normally available in companies' databases and archives, to make it fit for the dialogue and the discussion within the project. So that concerns your internal intelligence. It costs you time. Now we talked about a stakeholder map already on length on the previous lecture, and on the knowledge map from the Idea Factory. If we look at them too, it's very important to realize what sort of time that will cost you. To set up a stakeholder map will cost you 1 to 2 days. And as said before, you have to identify all the key players, the specialists, people with influence and importance in the process, the institutes or research organizations that are relevant for your discussion, and you make that shareholder, that stakeholder knowledge map. So 1 to 2 man days really for researchers to set it all together. So it's not much work, and it's actually often a forgotten quality. If you go to PricewaterhouseCoopers and you ask them, do you make use of stakeholder maps? They probably say, what do you mean? But good consulting firms do use them, and they're very, very helpful. The other side, that is the knowledge map, the normal knowledge map. It will take you around 15 weeks of hard work to get a structure together. That normally means it is the way you set up the structure of the taxonomies, translate the taxonomies into the questionnaire, and etc. That will take you 15 weeks. Then around 2-3 weeks to set up the ICT when you want to publish after the data are sampled from the people. Yeah, if you want to produce a knowledge map, it is around 2 to 3 weeks work for the ICT department. And this doesn't matter if it's 100 knowledge workers or 10,000 knowledge workers. The structure is the work, and then you set out your questionnaire that people can plot themselves on the structure, and that doesn't cost much work. It's just a few weeks that everybody has to go through that little exercise of 10-15 minutes per person. And because they can do it simultaneously, that doesn't matter. It's just a matter of communicating it well and managing it well. Okay, now let's look at the project as a whole. You see a project start, you see a project debriefing at the end, and what you see, in fact, on every different stage or step into a project process, you can apply social media for the dialogue. It wins a lot of time instead of old-fashioned hours-long meetings. And in the meetings, the minutes are always very disappointing. If you read them back, it hardly reflects of what people really said or meant. And now you have the real dialogue and the real version control in the wiki and the dialogue and the blog. And important, and that's these little gray dots, at the end is that you give them the right metadata, the right labels. These labels means that if you want to preserve your blog or your wiki, that you know exactly which tags they have, and they must listen to the tags of the taxonomy, so that you can always find back the right dialogue which you have had in the past in your history concerning similar problems or similar choices in technology or similar choices in strategic direction. The blogs and wikis reflect an enormous interaction based on application of knowledge and experience, and if you can capture them with the right metadata, you will see that it is important to find them back the right way thanks to the metadata tags which listen to the taxonomy, so that the reuse is maximized. So, next slide, what you see is that if, and on these examples we just have the blogs and wikis related to the start and the end of projects, but there will be many phases in between where you like to apply them as well. And here you can see that at the end, if everything is metadated well, it listens to the structure, so it's very easy for you to pick the right documentation and lessons learned from the past if you make them all available via the knowledge base. Interesting is that you can see how these actually fit in a knowledge cycle from Nonaka and Takeuchi. Now let's look at the potential results when you apply social media in projects. First of all, people think they can start up much faster. Projects always bear the risk that they fail, that somewhere the project will derail and it simply stops because they run out of time, they don't have the quality, they can't progress in time, etc. We found that the application of social media and project will reduce that risk of project failure big times. All right. Third one, starting off with a better sense of benefits or business case. Because of that discussion, you have a better sense what you actually will gain from the project. In general, you make less mistakes. The decisions to be made are better informed. you, because of all the knowledge maps and the relation with the documentation from which are metadated well, you make a maximum use of the intellectual capital that is present in your organization. They actually say that the whole lead time from start to finish in projects can become shorter because of this technology. It's a better capturing of lessons learned and new insights at the end. There's better archiving because of the knowledge dialogues and information intelligence context to the project. There's a better transfer within a program from, let's say, one project to the next project, or for one project stage to the next project stage. Okay. There's better involvement of super users or users also during implementation. Now, that's all bit the listing of the potential results. I think this is important for your exam. Please have a good listen to it maybe for a second time. Thank you.